Saxon Algebra 1/2, lesson 100. Caleb, if we were meeting in person, I would have asked you what your favorite candy was. And let's say you said Skittles. I would have brought you 100 Skittles today to celebrate that we are at lesson 100. It's a major accomplishment. That's a lot of math. And we're going to keep going. But we are definitely past the tipping point, right? We're definitely getting closer to the end. It's the beginning of the end. And the end of the middle. Okay, advanced ratio problems. I set these up differently than John does, so if you look at the lesson, it's not going to look like what I do. I like an organizer that looks a little bit like a tic-tac-toe board. John doesn't know this cool trick. And I'm going to teach it to you as we do the lesson. The ratio of nuts to bolts was 11 to 2. Okay, we've done this before, right? We started with something that looked like this. We're going to change it, but I'm going to start with what we know. Okay, the ratio of nuts to bolts was 11 to 2. Okay, N for nuts, B for bolts, ratio, and actual, right? I'll write that out because we haven't done these in a while. That's what the letter stands for, right? Nuts to bolts was 11 to 2. If there were 260 nuts and bolts in the pile, how many were bolts? Wait a minute. John is giving us information about nuts and bolts combined, and we don't have any place to record information about that or any clue what the heck he's talking about now. So what we're going to do is we're going to add one more row. We're going to start doing this to all of our tic-tac-toe ratio boards. We're going to add a third row called total. Because what John tells us is that there were 260 nuts and bolts in a pile. So that means in our actual data, we know something about the total. Now, we don't know anything ratio-wise for the total, but we can easily calculate it. If the ratio is 11 to 2, then we can add those together and come up with a ratio total of 13. What that means is that for every 13 pieces of hardware, nuts and bolts, we expect 11 to be nuts and bolts to be 2. So if there are 260, we would expect that same ratio to hold, and then we'll set up our fraction in just a minute. If the nuts and bolts, if there were 260 nuts and bolts in the pile, how many were bolts? So B is bolts. This is where I want to get my answer. When we add the total, we will not need 3 rows to set up our pair of fractions, our actual ratios. What we will do is we will notice one of the rows isn't important to us, and we'll just squiggle it out. This one, these two have numbers and or letters in every space. So we don't need that first row. Notice I don't erase it, I don't scribble it out so hard I can't see it. I just draw a line through it so I don't confuse myself. And then I'll write 2 over 13 equals x over 260. So I just pull the numbers, just like we did before. I just eliminate the row that is non-essential. And I can always tell it's non-essential because it has a blank in it. Okay, so now we solve it just the way we did before. We cross multiply. 2 times 260 equals 13x. I divide by 13. Notice I don't do any work to multiply those two because I'm going to divide, and John always makes it work out nicely. So there's no need to make this number bigger. I'd rather see it in its component pieces. 13 into 26. So this will be 20, right? 13 times 20 equals 260. That cancels. And so we get x equals 40. That's the number that goes here. And our answer is 40 volts. Okay, that's the correct answer. If you look in the book, please don't, honestly. John's got like pictures of fingers and covering things up. It's kooky. So, pay no attention to him, just make our tic-tac-toe board. Let's do another one. There are 3 in all. 100.2. Farmer Dunkowski wanted to plant his farm with wheat and corn in the ratio of 7 acres to 9 acres. Okay. Wheat, corn, and then I said from now on we're going to make a total. There may be problems where we don't need the total line, but from now on we're always going to make it. So ratio, actual, and let's see, I want to write them in the proper order. Wheat, corn, and total. He wants to plant it in the ratio of 7 to 9, wheat to corn, and then we can always add those together. We don't even have to think about that. That's just an automatic. If he had 640 acres, how many should be planted in wheat? Okay, so 640 is the total acres he has, and how many should be planted in wheat? So the X goes there. We squiggle out the corn line. We don't need that. We pull our ratio right off the table. 7 over 16 equals X over 640. Cross multiply. 7 times 640 equals 16x. Do not multiply until we divide first. That cancels. Okay, now we're ready to simplify this. 16. Okay, I can see 8s in both of these numbers. I can see 16 is 8 times 2, and 64 would be 8 times 80, wouldn't it? Right? 64 and 0. Okay, so I'm going to cross these numbers up because I've rewritten them in factors. The 8's cancel automatically. Now I can simplify 80 over 2. That's 40. I'm writing it over here because these are my only 2 numbers left. 40 times 7, that means that X equals 280 acres should be planted of wheat. That's the right answer. The table, it's all about the table. It's all about the table, Caleb. If you can get your numbers arranged, then it's easy after that. One more. Example 100.3. When the race began, the ratio of professionals to amateurs was 2 to 17. Okay. So we're racing, I don't know what kind of a race. I think it's a frog jumping contest, personally. So we've got some professional frog jumpers and some amateurs. I mean, maybe the frogs are the professionals rather than the people who are jumping them. I don't know. But we've got, let's do them in the right order, professionals to amateurs, and then we'll have a total line, ratio to actual. The ratio of professionals to amateurs was 2 to 17. We calculate the total by adding them. We don't even have to think about that. If 3,800 racers were in the race, 3800, how many were amateurs? Amateurs. X. Okay, so we can squiggle out the professional line. We don't need that. 17 over 19 equals X over 3,800. Just lift it off and set it into this format. All right, cross multiply. 17 times 3,800 equals 19x. Divide away the 19. 19 times 2 is 38. So this is going to be 200, right, if I take the zeros into account. And these cancel because I divided by that. 17 times 2 is 34. And then 2 zeros, right? There are the 2 zeros. That's how many amateurs are going to be in the jumping contest. Did I say jumping? No, it's just a race. I'm the one who turned it into a frog jumping contest. Amateurs. Alright, so the amateur frogs are really dominating the field. And let's hope one of them's the winner. Okay, that's the right answer. So, the trick to this lesson is make the chart, the tic-tac-toe board, just like we have been, but add a total row on the bottom. And then notice that there's usually a number about the total in the problem for the actual numbers, and that's what we use. Put the X in for the place, the question that you're trying to answer for John. That's lesson 100. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It's a gem. And we are now definitely on the downhill side of our year of math. See you next time.